Welcome. Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks to Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Aaron Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Morning, Ted.
Oh, it's swoon theory making its rounds again.
What's making its rounds?
Well, I just heard Jesus not dying. There used to be people back in the 70s, 80s saying, someone wrote a book called The Swoon Theory, that Jesus really never died on the cross. They took him down and he resuscitated and they faked his resurrection. Just all kinds of these things have always been there, of course.
I remember that verse. And lo, they applied the defibrillator.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we just have eyewitness testimony of the day and the record of it. Now, if someone doesn't want to accept it, that's fine. But that's what they saw and that's what they recorded. It's up to the individual now.
And they witnessed the centurion give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and it was good.
Yeah, I just haven't read that chapter, though.
It's in the Book of Arwen.
Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, this is a physics show at the end of the day. What's going on that realm?
Oh yeah, by the way, that BBC thing that little snippet that you put out, I know you talked about it, but guy never answers the question. That's really telling.
Kinda doesn't answer the question. You rephrase it into...
No, he doesn't. I'm saying that. I know you brought it up, but it's funny how he doesn't even answer it.
Yeah, it was left to hang. Can you believe those guys are saying you can't have gas pressure without a container? Violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Can you believe that?
And he said, "You don't believe that."
Well,
what did he say? It's not true. How did he say it?
He said, well, of course they're wrong. That was his actual answer. What do you think? Do you think they're wrong? Well, of course they're wrong. That was his answer. All right, we're wrong. All right, so second law of thermodynamics, entropy increase, gas filling space. That's wrong, is it? No. Just violated by your sky vacuum belief. No explanation given. Apparently none required. Oh my God. Why am I getting constantly Fundy muted? Can't you contain yourself till you hear the end of a sentence, whoever it is that's doing that? It's been 2 minutes on the show, and it's annoying. I come to edit this stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is this stupid noise in the background constantly over the top of me? What is that? Oh, it's somebody who thinks it's constantly needed. That, yeah, I can hear you interrupting me. Yeah, thanks. Just keep doing it. Bloody hellfire.
Well, you sound like you stopped talking.
What, when I'm in the middle of a bloody sentence, I sound like I stopped talking,
exactly.
Do I, Fundy?
I just want to say, he sounds like he sounds like he's looking for an answer with that when he brought it to him, that guy. He's definitely waiting for the guy to give him an answer.
Oh, absolutely. Simon Dan is asking because he wants an answer. He doesn't have one. Simon Dan, that is. Journalistic tip for you, Simon Dan. Never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. Poor show. That's free advice, by the way. I wouldn't give you that unless I actually thought you'd done a good job. I don't take my tone to mean that this is not worthy information. Take it to heart. It's free advice. Don't ask questions that you don't already know the answer to when you're in that circumstance, when you're interviewing somebody. My God, shouldn't have to give you journalistic tips. But there we go. You did land the interview, so kudos and props. You deserve a little bit of a tip and of advice from me. Whether or not you want it, it's entirely up to you. It's good advice, trust me. In case you think it's not good advice, this is more to the audience than to Simon Dan. Yeah? What happens when you ask a question that you don't already know the answer to? Well, you can watch exactly what happens when Simon Dan asks a question he doesn't already know the answer to a BBC journalist claimed to be an astrophysicist. He gets an answer that gets trimmed out by your opponent and held up for us all to laugh at how he doesn't have an answer. So if you don't have an answer, Dan, what would make you think that the physicist would have one? You'd just have it at a pinch, right? But you're asking because you want to know, because it's obviously troubling for you. You didn't give him any alternative answer, now did you? In the midst of the, well, do you think they're wrong? You gave a kind of, yes, well, no. Well, he said, well, obviously they're wrong. Well, that's what you got as your answer, Dan. So I bet you're really pleased you asked that question of the astrophysicist, because you got a really cracking answer, didn't you? Maybe come here and throw that at us. The astrophysicist said, well, obviously you're wrong. See how well that goes down. Yes, Neil, this is a long, protracted silence that you could be talking about.
I'm afraid.
Neil's just waiting to make
Freaking
sure.
afraid now. I don't want to say nothing.
I knew that was coming out. I knew. That's why I preempted it. Bloody martyr.
Nathan, don't worry. You can never offend me. Anyway, that guy looks like a real moron. I mean, he's you could see it in his face that he wants an answer to this question so he could come right back on and give the answer. And he left with nothing.
Yeah, this was coincidentally discussed on QE show last night. Check it out. Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, open discussion. And they're discussing exactly that. Their opinions and feelings, admittedly, about the attitudes taken by certain, let's call them scientists, in terms of their honesty when presented with questions like, how can you have gas pressure without a container? And in some instances, they say, I'll get back to you. And you think, well, that's actually a reasonably honest answer, not, well, obviously they're wrong. They're part of a group that I want to ridicule and automatically demean and consider as incorrect, regardless of any consideration or demonstration that I even understand what entropy is, having not even said the word back to the person asking it me. Nevertheless, they're obviously wrong. That's a totally unreasonable position to take. The I don't know, or I'll get back to you, is actually a perfectly reasonable position to take. And when QE said that, because I didn't know that was going to be the route that they took in discussion, but when he said it, I was like, yeah, absolutely. The only position you can take is, that's a bit of a quandary, as opposed to, you're an idiot, which is what we actually get. Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Hey.
Yeah, but Nathan, that works. Them just calling flat earthers idiots, it seems to work.
Yeah, well, like I say, that might have dire consequences moving forward. Now it's been highlighted by me, which is to say that if I was to say anybody who's got an opinion on abortion, well, they're perfectly valid from everyone except for anybody of the LGBTQ denomination, if you can call it that. I don't know what the correct term is. Yeah, my bad for not knowing the LGBTQ terminology. Whatever you would associate as a group set terminology for that as a collective. If they, let's use it in a really derogatory way, were to have an opinion on an abortion, that would be an outrage. It would be automatically considered wrong. Would be the equivalent if I was to present it in that fashion to what we receive as flat earthers. What? Flat earther? Automatically wrong. Oh yeah? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think societally that should be accepted.
Just call them the alphabet community, Nathan.
it's just an example I could use. I originally used a religious example and said if it was Sikhs or Muslims or Jews or whatever, oh right, he's a Jew. Well, then automatically incorrect. Obviously, there'd be outrage, wouldn't there? And then Adam came along and turned it into a much more current, LGBTQ example. And I'm like, yeah, that's much better. Because they're obviously fighting for their rights, as you'd expect them to do if they're persecuted. Well, we're a group, aren't we? Even if we don't want to be in that group and we say we're not, often people get bundled into it. I'm looking at you, JLB, when you're called a flat earther and you're definitely saying, I'm not a flat earther, I don't want to be any part of that group. That group's full of propaganda and controlled opposition and nonsense statements from idiots who don't know anything. I don't want part of that group. Nah, you're a flat earther. You say the Earth's not a sphere, don't you? Yeah, you're a flat earther then. And therefore, everything you say is wrong, and I can call you an idiot all day long, and everyone will cheer, because that's accepted. Well, it shouldn't be.
Didn't realise I joined a political show.
I've made it political, Anthony.
Why?
Well, because that's the society we live in. Whether we want to delude ourselves that we can extract ourselves from the matrix, if you want to see it in that way, the control structure that we live within, of which there is no denying. If you want to believe incorrectly that you can remove yourself from that society, then you're delusional. So we are part of that structure, we are part of that society, and there is societal rules that govern how people should apparently behave. Now, regardless of whether or not I agree with them, when I look at the world in a slightly negative way and go, well, I've got no control over these normies, half of them forget what's happened 6 months ago. They're completely blinkered to whatever was told to them and there's now changed for whatever reason. Anyway, you think, well, that's a bit pessimistic, but by the same token, I still have to abide by their group mindset, societal structure, whenever I involve myself in society, which is most of the time. Well, those rules and regulations, well, they might occasionally work against me, often will work for me. I'm still part of that structure. I'm still part of society. I consider myself an honest member in society. Well, okay. Therefore, what? The rules don't apply to me because I state with absolute certitude that the Earth is obviously and observably flat. Hang him! Idiot! Fool! What? What? It's outrageous.
The way you put it, it really is that way, though. It's sad, but it is that way.
All I'm doing, Anthony, is paralleling that with Adam's example of an LGBT circumstance mixed in with a circumstance where, in my example, somebody's arguing with me about abortion and I have a perfectly good discussion. They've got some great points. They have me over the barrel a few times. I have them over a barrel. Everyone's better for the debate. But at the end, the person says, oh, by the way, I'm name a different transgender thing that hasn't been named already. Non-binary, we've had transgender.
Non-binary, yeah.
We've had that. Homosexual. I'm a homosexual. All right. Well, if I'd have known that you were a homosexual debating about abortion, I wouldn't have even had the conversation with you. There would be outrage.
I actually answered that question yesterday. Somebody said to me, you're a flat earther, aren't you? And I said, I'm non-binary.
But
I don't like the term flat earther. That's like, you're either a 1 or a 0, aren't you, in this topic? So there's nothing in between. And I thought, I'm going to use non-binary just because I don't like the term.
Well, I've been using it in jest in chat. So I'll say something that, for whatever reason, I'll use a term that somebody might say, you're not allowed to use that, you're not black. And I'll just say, no, I am. I am black. I identify as black. In fact, I identify as a black Muslim Jewish woman.
Yeah,
and just to defend it into part.
Politically awkward.
Well, it's just like, well, don't dictate what I can and can't say. And if you're going to use that kind of nonsense against me, I'll tell you how I identify on that particular given moment, because I am on that particular occasion identifying as a Jewish black Muslim woman. If you want to play that card, I'll just play it straight back and descend it into farce. Is the point of that type of humour. But by the same token, while I've used it as humour, you're like, well, the reason that's humorous is because that is part of our society. That's the only reason that gets a laugh. Well, as much as I'm descending it into farce, it doesn't mean that it's not part of our structure that we have to abide by. Yeah? descending it into farce might get a laugh, but only because it's part of our society. Well, let's flip that on its head a second. Hold on. Part of our society is that you can't demean and ridicule specific groups. And whether I want to be or not, I'm told I'm in a group. And that particular group that they put me in, whether I like it or not, is definitely deemed acceptable to ridicule. Oh, right, that seems a bit weird in our current society, doesn't it? Political or otherwise, Anthony.
It's a joke. Everything's become so stupid that you can't talk about anything. But we're supposed to have freedom of speech, right? And that includes the right to offend people. That you take offence, right? It's not I give offence, you take offence, and there's no crime with being offended. But it's the balance in between being offended and then being discriminatory that's makes it so that no one really knows what's the position anymore. And I thought I understood this when I left school because I got it, but by the time I got to 40, it's become that convoluted. I now don't know what I can and can't say anymore for fear of being discriminatory rather than just purely disagreeing with
well, then it's
somebody.
worked. Well, then it's worked. That's the purpose. It's always based on fear. They want you to be in a position where you're concerned about the very words that cross your own lips. I have no such concern, Anthony. I'm sorry if that offends anybody. I don't care if I offend you.
But it's all right to be offended and it's all right to offend someone. But if you discriminate against somebody, that can be legal, can't it? And then
Precisely. Exactly the point, which was better illustrated by Adam now he's here. Hi, Adam, with your LGBTQ example, which is better than my religious example, which is a little bit dusty and out of date.
Yeah, I'll fight for the right for you to remain to be allowed to be offended.
I thought you were about to say,
I agree. I think
I was
nothing
about
wrong
to
with
say, I'm
being
going to fight
offended.
for your right to be a black Jewish Muslim woman.
Amen. if you want to identify like that, it's absolutely fine. Don't ask me to accept it. You know what
I was going to say, just don't ask me to accept it with a birthday card or some kind of card where it puts in it, "Dear the tree," and your name's John.
Like it's like a bloke with a really bad wig. I'm not going to go up to him and go, "That's a really bad wig." I just politely acknowledge him without mentioning the blatantly obvious.
What's really bad, like as in curly clown wig that's obviously laughable, or trying to look like real hair when the guy's a slaphead?
Well, either way, I was dragged
Shout
up
out to
right,
Arwen.
and I would be respectful to the person, the individual. Would I have respect to their doctor in that I disagree with? No. But I'd have respect for the individual.
I see. Well, we experience no such respect in this arena. We're intentionally bundled into a category or group so that we can be ridiculed, which seems arse about face to me. Seems wrong.
No, but it's encouraged and justified by the mainstream to not only bundle us, categorise us, but then ridicule and vilify, as if our opinion is worth nothing because we identify as a particular viewpoint.
No, I don't identify as that anymore, Adam. I say that I'm non-binary because I'm not. I don't like the one or the other. It's like I'm not. I don't know if it's flat or not. To me, there's mountains that go as high as plains, and there's valleys that go as deep as the Mariana Trench. That to me tells me that there's no particular shape, but on a big enough scale, it's probably flat. But on our scale, it's all over the place, isn't it? We've got topography, and that doesn't really have a shape to it. So I just prefer the phrase non-binary in that context because it's like I don't know how big the plane that we live on is. Where's the edge?
I love it.
So what? That's like saying a biblical earth. It's
No,
flat. You know it's not a sphere, Anthony. Are you still on this? It could be bigger ball nonsense?
Not at all. He said,
No.
I don't know. Listen to the words that he said. He dropped it right in at the end, subtly. Right? I don't know how big the plane we live on is. Anthony's made it clear what his position is.
Well, on our scale, it's all over the place because we have topography. But how big's the scale? Or how small is the scale?
Right.
I don't know.
We don't know what the sky is. We don't know what the limitations are, if any, to the plane we live on. There's no way of us, mere mortals, with the limited information and, further to that, the lies we are told about the claimed limitations that we experience. How would we know? Now, hopefully, from people who are long-time subscribers of this particular channel, they'll realise that we don't have to make any positive assertions in terms of the lies that we've been told. Just because we've been told a lie about something and we call the liar a liar for lying doesn't mean that suddenly we have to produce a just so story about, for example, the sky. We don't. Now, why don't we know? Well, because we've been lied to the same as everybody else, and we can point out how and why we've been lied to. We can even give examples using natural law of why the claim of a sky vacuum is a lie. But does that mean that suddenly we become the arbiter of what the sky is? No, it doesn't. So don't feel obliged to give people explanations when they strawman you, having lost an argument about their claim of a sky vacuum, which is what you'll get. Well, prove your dome. What dome? I didn't say dome. Well, you're implying it. Well, no, that's your assumption based on the fact that we must have some form of containment to be breathing.
Yeah, it's blue and made of glass.
Yeah, but they make it sound like there's a secret that we don't know. I would like to hear that whole BBC interview. Where can I get that?
It's a cry for help. See it as what it is, right? Cry for help.
Yeah.
When someone says, okay, prove your dome, what they're acknowledging in that statement is that they can't defeat your position regarding the second law of thermodynamics and expansion of gas into space. They can't defeat it, so they then challenge you to explain what would keep it here for us. Now, I've never, ever asked myself that question prior to being told that it was a sky vacuum, and then upon realisation that that definitely isn't the case, that none of that process involves me giving an explanation for what it is. But suddenly, when someone says, well, prove your dome, well, number one, I didn't claim one. What I claimed is you can't have gas pressure without a container. Now, if you want to challenge that, you need to show me gas pressure without a container. Not just point to the sky and say, well, I believe that's a vacuum.
The other thing is, though, Nathan, that those that say, well, prove your dome, they're the people that demand and insist and can't accept just not knowing. They're the ones that demand that you tell them the answers so that you can then make the assertion that they can pull apart. Yeah. But I'm all right with not knowing, because I'm all right with thinking that whatever light is, it's clearly not of our realm, because it is of our realm, but our physics guys can't work it out because they argue over light all the time. So it's like, maybe we just don't understand everything that we think we understand and teach people that we understand. Maybe we just don't understand it. I'm all right with that.
By the same token, it's an acknowledgement that they have lost the argument. And you saying, oh, well, they already want to ask you because, well, they only want to ask you because they've lost the argument. They've lost the position in terms of defending their positive claim. Now, at that point, you haven't made a positive claim. You've debunked their assertions. But they need a straw man because they can't bear mentally to have a loss. If they lose their position to a flat earther, that's devastating. Whereas if they just move on to, well, you must have a positive assertion I can debunk easily, so I can take the win away from this loss in terms of my positive assertion about a sky vacuum you've just debunked by simply pointing out that gas fills space. That's what gas does. No, it doesn't. Look, we've got a sky vacuum, I'm assuming, and it's not filling it. No, that's a natural law violation. Prove your dome. What dome? What are you talking about? You're now claiming a dome. No, you do. No, I don't. And so it goes on, so that they can get a perceived win when they tie you to a straw man that they want to burn, rather than acknowledging that they've just relinquished their belief in a sky vacuum by asking you to prove the containment of the sky. I don't know what the sky must have as its containment. I just know that to be breathing, it must exist. Doesn't mean I'm a sky expert. But everybody around me seems to be a sky expert and think that there's rocket men in it, and it's a vacuum. They're making a positive claim, not me. Simple.
Hey everyone, hey Nathan.
Is that you, Brian?
Hey.
Yeah, how are things?
Oh, I thought, who's on the level? Sorry, Brian. Yes, good to have you. Who's on the level?
That's Paul, I think.
Hey, Paul.
Oh, Paula.
Paula. Oh, of course, it's Paula.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, Paula. Good to have you.
No, that's me, Bev.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
Bev.
it's Bev.
Oh,
Can we call you Paula anyway?
Name. Sorry, Bev. Paul has a similar name, sorry.
Yeah, it must have signed me into a different Google account.
Paula's level up.
You fucking troll.
No swearing. Just about to start the bloody live show. Bastards. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Neil, Bev, 10th Man, Adam Meakin, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people on Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning.
Hey, how things?
Morning.
Afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good.
Good afternoon, good evening, hello, wherever you may be. Any evidence?
Does
of
feel a little bit like register in the morning. Good morning, Nathan. Good morning, everybody.
What is this?
Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Riley.
There is no
Good
obligation.
morning,
There is no
everybody.
register. There is
Hello,
no.
Tony.
Nobody's here by anything other than their own volition. Okay, there's no register. Where the hell have you
Shout
been,
out to
Arwin?
Shout out to Curved Water. Do you remember he used to eat, like, he was one of the first people that would be in here every day of a morning. Like, and if it was really intimidating if you were like quite a new flat earther coming in and seeing a baller sat there like he was in his classroom chair, and you've then got to go and engage with this moron, and he doesn't come in anymore.
Yep. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
No, but if you calculate it, it becomes a thing.
Bev might have something.
What you got there?
Nah. Absolutely nothing for that curve thing.
Do you not argue that straight is curved, Bev? I thought that was your main position.
Well, yeah. We do know the difference between straight and curved over there.
You sure?
Yeah.
I thought with the Merriam-Webster dictionary, they defined curved and straight as the same thing, essentially.
That's
I
just
did
semantics.
have somebody tell me the other day that they can mathematically graph a curve onto a graph and then transpose the numbers of that curve. So therefore, if you drew a straight line on that graph, you could also do the same. So therefore, straight is a curve.
Are they, hold on.
So we
hold
live-
on.
So
Are they
we live
talking
on a
about?
flat ball then.
Are they talking about binary locations to make up a curve? Because yeah, that would be made up of straight lines. Is that what they mean?
No, they just mean that they can turn a curve into numbers and then imagine that a straight line can also be turned into numbers. And because they're both numbers, they can both be then classed as a curve.
See, that's what Einstein did with space-time. He plotted out a straight line and then bent space-time around it, and that graph then becomes curved. But it's still straight if you view it from the perspective of the line that was originally there. It's just being curved in the graph.
About bending
The
geodesics
globe
in
is
space
just
time.
relative to the observer.
Go on, Brian.
Sorry, Nathan, I overtalked you.
That's
I'm
okay. I was
saying-
just saying he's describing bending geodesics in space time. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the globe is relative to the observer. That's what that means. Load of rubbish.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nothing.
Yeah, I got something there a while ago. I got a comment. Probably about the 50 millionth time I got the same comment off. Another different ball proponent. If I ask somebody, I will find out that things weigh less at the equator. I mean, now completely ignore every other factor that may be involved, like the fact that there is always a lower pressure at the equator because it gets the most sunshine, these kind of things. The fact that things supposedly weigh a fraction less at the equator, supposedly, that means it's a globe.
See, this reminds me of Brandon Toy when he was dealing with GeoStreber and he was challenged by Rumpus, who was obfuscating the point intentionally. They were talking about Eötvös effect, and at the equator, things weigh less because of the Eötvös effect. And the example they often give is boats, as they're traveling east and west on the equator or near the equator, they apparently weigh less. Not to do with the warmer waters there. They put it down to the rotation of the Earth. And when Brandon was presented a graph that was in 4 axes, he was asking where the data came from. And Rumpus spotted that he was about to point out that it was a reification fallacy and obfuscated the point, and then duly got kicked by GeoStreber, who had no idea what was going on. For everybody that's familiar with the argument, Rumpus was stopping him, pointing out that it was a reification fallacy, and Brandon absolutely destroyed the point that was about to be made by making that point. But Rumpus successfully obfuscated the point, and Brandon missed his opportunity to claim victory. But nonetheless, it shows the intelligence of Rumpus. He will Rumpus points on purpose, and if you're not aware of these tactics, they will use them against you and at your own peril. And we lose points where we actually win because of obfuscation tactics by faceless trolls.
Well, I know for definite that. Well, when I say for definite, as much as I could know, that we do in generally have a lower air pressure, more lower air pressure areas at the equator because it gets so much sunshine, because there's never a winter. So did they ever take that into account? Ever? And the answer is no. Ask any of them, did they ever take that into account? Has anyone ever taken that into account? The answer is no. This is an effect that supposedly they are, so that means it's a globe. That's the extent of their mentality.
Yeah, non sequitur fallacy, like the most base fallacy you can use.
Yeah.
It's brilliant because I'm watching certain people in the topic that are quite new to the topic, and they're learning how to get their way around, and they're learning the fallacies as well as learning the models. So they're learning that when people do certain things like present maths to calculate something, it doesn't mean that it's the cause of the effect. It doesn't mean that that's what's really going on just because you calculate it, because we know that mathematics is abstract by definition. It isn't science. And they're learning these things, and it's brilliant to watch the mind going through their little journey. And they ask me, why don't I engage with these people anymore? They used to see me engaging with them all. And the answer is, it's better to educate our lot than it is to fight their lot, because their lot will never concede any point ever. We're better off teaching our own.
Yeah, I see it in comments. People going out because they've presumably, well, I say presumably, they must have watched the arguments develop here to then go out and parrot them in comments and smash people's heads in with them. It's absolutely brilliant when I see people out there using modus tollens in the comments section. Just think, yeah, you go, man. Just chop that fundy's head off with it. That's what it's for.
I love it. I love it when I see people presenting like maths, and then a flat earther will come back and say that's reification, it's abstract, and I'm like, they've been watching the show. It's fantastic.
Oh, right. When they just parrot it back without knowing what the fallacy really means. When they're on the globe side, they don't bother to actually learn how the fallacy is constructed and how it would apply in a given circumstance. They just hear us saying something that's fallacious, like straw man. And I go, straw man! Normally, when you've pointed out their use of a straw man, so then I'll say, no, you're using a straw man.
But it's even better though when our side correct them when they present a mathematical explanation for something that's supposed to be the cause of the effect, and our side spot it and go, that's just reification of mathematics. Where's the experiment? And I'm like, oh, hallelujah.
Yeah, it does make me proud, I've got to be honest, because you can tell it's pretty glaring when somebody's typing that stuff out in someone else's comment section, and you know they've come from here. You know it. You know, you don't have to ask.
And it's even better when someone like Gem Panda says, you're just spewing out Nathan Oakley shit, or whatever it is that he says. And when you hear him saying that, you just realize that not only is our arguments getting out to people, it's that the ballers know where it's coming from, and they haven't got a rebuttal. All they've got to do is say, it's just Nathan Oakley or quantum eraser nonsense, rather than address the point. And it's like, oh, this is brilliant.
Indeed. Let's move on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
15 degrees. Thanks, Bob. You know, I don't even respond to someone that says thanks, Bob, anymore. I just block them. I go onto their account, notice they've opened it in a week, and they've got 500 comments on this particular channel in a week, and I just block them straight away.
I mean, I've got a pre-typed out response, which is to say, the globe claims we have 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns beneath stuff not attached. Now, that example is what they claim from Bob. They're saying Bob has proven that the drift experience from that gyro is caused by Earth turning beneath it, its Coriolis effect. That's what Coriolis is, you turning beneath something not attached. So the not attached thing is in an inertial reference frame, you turning beneath it are on a non-inertial spinning reference frame. And the effect of not actual drift, gyros don't drift, the fact that it appears to drift is claimed to be proving Earth's turning beneath it. Well, if Earth's turning beneath gyroscopes and pendulums and footballs and bullets, then it's turning beneath hot air balloons, drones, helicopters, aeroplanes, you if you jump up and down. And that simply doesn't happen. You don't observe 15 degrees an hour drift, ever. That effect does not happen. Now, normally, when you point that out to a globe-believing fundy, they'll start debating with you about why it doesn't happen, when it's the claimed proof that is supposed to prove we spin, this observation of 15 degrees an hour. So you can use it to your advantage when they say, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob, for proving that your claim is Earth turns beneath stuff not attached. Right, that doesn't happen. Show me in nature where something's drifting away at 15 degrees an hour. You won't, but you might launch into an explanation about conservation of angular momentum, debunked by the Black Swan. Because you don't have radian values to apply to that example. In spite of the fact that it's not your example, because Coriolis drift is, and you don't have it. Any evidence to distance to the sun?
No, again, they just assume it. They calculate it into existence by assuming that things like Venus are set distance away, and they fire radars at it. And then when they get the results back, they go, "Oh, look, there it is." And they go, "Where?" And then they can argue about whether it is it or not. And then eventually somebody will go, "Yeah, that's it." And then they'll say, "Right, we know how far Venus is." They just calculate it. They just assume that it's there, and they just interpret squiggles on things and claim that that's the distance. Alternatively, they just calculate it based on the assumption from Christian Huygens, who assumed that the Earth was at the same size as Venus. And there is no evidence for the distance to anything in the solar system. We don't know what these things are. They're just lights in the sky. It's outrageous.
It's inside the firmament.
We'll come to that later. You're not normally here for me to make such a beautiful segue, ruined by Neil, into the R value. So assumed by Christian Huygens to have the same radius value as a presupposed spherical Earth with a presupposed, now debunked by the Black Swan, radius value. Any evidence of the R value, that's Earth radius?
No evidence. And you could say ruined by me all you want, but the fact of the matter is, it's inside the firmament. We all are.
Okay, let's do it. What's the firmament, Neil?
And how do you know it's inside?
One step at a time. What's the firmament?
Nathan, can we have gas pressure out of container?
Fundy. What's the firmament?
Yeah. Hang on. You can't. Hang on, Neil.
No,
Neil.
we can't.
The firmament is
Well,
the
the
question
firmament
whether
is
you
not
have gas
covering.
pressure without a container, apparently.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a
not-
fundy, it will immediately descend into lots of verbal chaos. No clear, concise answers and questions
No,
being
I'm
asked
telling you
anymore.
what it is.
Just
It's
a lot of
feeling.
over-talking for the obfuscating. Third time's a charm,
Neil,
then we'll move on, Neil. What is the firmament, Neil?
Is it the container?
Firmament, it's the top of our container. It's why we're able to live and breathe. It
So
is
why
a
can't we just call it
protection
container?
over us. We are a container. Earth is
Yeah,
a
but
container.
why do we have to call it
It's
firmament?
obvious. Because the Bible says that it's a firmament.
I see. I don't ascribe to the Bible though. I ascribe to the Quran or
Look,
the Torah.
Hold on. I'm happy to accept the logical inference that the Bible is also implying. But if you say firmament and you claim to know what it is, then you're going to have information about it to back it. What's it made of, for example?
Well, I never seen it. But
move
it's
on.
obvious that we have it.
Move on.
It's described in the Bible as
I heard.
kryptonite.
Thank you, Neil. Other religious
get upset.
texts are available. Right. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
No evidence. We have a container. We live in a container. What do you mean evidence you can have it without a container? That's impossible.
Yeah, you can have gas pressure without a container. But there is an assertion that the sky is a vacuum, so hence we ask the question, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Given that their claim is the sky is a space for gas to fill.
As far as I know, there has never been any evidence for that claim.
May as well plug my own show. So, Trouble at the BBC is the title. Go and check it out. Simon Dan, big shout out to you for collaring a BBC astrophysicist for an interview. Unfortunately, you made a grim mistake in journalism by asking a question you didn't already know the answer to, leaving your interviewee in a very difficult position, having to fumble around for 3 minutes to obfuscate away from the question you asked. You don't know the answer to either now, do you, Dan? Otherwise you wouldn't have asked it. Check it out. Trouble at the BBC.
It's interesting that he didn't say it was gravity, even though we don't accept it, because Dan said, like, they
No,
don't
he did.
accept gravity.
No, he did. He said, oh, because they deny gravity.
Well, yeah, that excludes it from his answer, but like he never said, well, gravity is the answer. Because like well, I don't know whether he knows this or not, but gravity's not been a force since 1915. And if he had have said gravity was a force, obviously that would be incorrect. It's not the current position in physics, in science today. So it's just interesting that he didn't say that it was gravity. He kind of fluffed it around, like danced around it without addressing the point at all. And Dan didn't even acknowledge that he didn't address the question.
No, I would accept that as a positive assertion. By way of denial of our opponent in his position, I'm talking from his perspective, when he says our opponents deny gravity, that's a positive implication that he's asserting gravity as the answer. And then he called, I think he said it was something like, because of pseudoscience physics reasons, only moments after being told by Simon Dan that our citation was the second law of thermodynamics and an entropy increase. He was like, what, because of pseudoscience physics? And you're like, oh yeah. No. Clearly, you asserting this as science would make it pseudoscience. It wouldn't make it untrue. It would just make you incorrect when you called it science, which it isn't. It's a natural law. Now, a few of the commenters were like, you said that he shouldn't be expected to know the difference between natural law and science. Do you know the difference? I'm like, yeah, I do. He doesn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't be saying, well, the fact that they're looking into science, no, you've just been given a natural law as the citation, not a scientific piece of evidence. So clearly he doesn't understand the difference, as he waffled on for 3 minutes and avoided the question about the sky vacuum. Thanks, Dan. Click from Anthony. Can you mute yourself? Or turn your game on? Where were we? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of said presupposed spherical Earth? Debunked by the R value. They don't have any more, Black Swan.
No.
I
don't think we need to say much else about that. Sorry.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No. Most people don't even know what it even is these days. They still keep on talking about something that's 106 years out of date.
Let's change the wording slightly there, Brian. Most people can't even define it, not know what it is, can't even define it, because the minute you get them to define what it is, it's no longer a force, and that kills their argument. It's such a powerful argument.
That's true.
The scientific evidence would be phenomena-based, experimentally valid. That's what we're talking about. Independent variable, dependent variable, cause and effect, valid through experiments. Hypothesis-based experimentation. Not merely a description of something that occurs always, that would be a natural law. Describing something that occurs always. a description of something that occurs always, doesn't explain why it occurs always. Now, if we had the cause of entropy, it would no longer be a natural law. It would be science. It isn't. It's just a description of something that occurs always. And what occurs always? Well, gas filling space, entropy increase. What's that you say? Flat earthers are claiming this natural law inviolable, occurring always. Well, obviously they're wrong. No, we're not. No. The fact that you can put us in that little group and then decide that we're wrong automatically, having looked around, vaguely scratched your head about what the hell is the second law of thermodynamics, having not repeated the word entropy or second law of thermodynamics back to the person asking you the question. This is the BBC correspondent in my video I'm plugging, which is called Trouble at the BBC. Enough plugs. But no scientific evidence, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
Nope.
No. Can I go back to the other one to give the right answer?
You're breaking up, Neil. Didn't hear any of that.
When the guy said obviously they're wrong, isn't he supposed to give the right answer?
He didn't give any answer other than that was his answer, saying obviously they're flat earthers, therefore wrong, was his answer to the question stated by Dan, which is flat earthers cite the second law of thermodynamics as a reason we can't have, in his words, an atmosphere next to a vacuum. I would say gas pressure without a container, as opposed to atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, begging the question fallacy within your paraphrasing of request for an explanation about the sky vacuum in violation of natural law. Don't just assume an atmosphere in future, Dan. We don't assume atmosphere, sphere-shaped air. That's an oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere. It takes the shape of its container. It's the V in standard gas law. The volume, the area, the amount of space it can fill. Anywho, the answer the BBC astrophysicist correspondent gave was, obviously they're wrong, they're flat earthers. After demonstrating he doesn't know the difference between natural law and science, I might add. He's an astrophysicist. Maybe Dan should have asked him, have you got any valid hypotheses? As we asked that daily.
That would have been a really good question.
Not experiment, Mr. Astrophysicist, bullshitter from the BBC. Merely a valid hypothesis. Don't even have to give us an experiment. Give me any valid hypothesis from your entire field of pseudoscience. Any.
Do you know, Nathan, I heard, I was watching back an old clip from Professor
They're only
Dave.
asking what is questions.
Hold on just one second.
Yeah.
John. Is it John?
And Globebusters had actually cited back to Professor Dave that the cosmology and astrophysics don't have any viable experiments. They got that one right. Well done, Globebusters. And his response was, hang on a second. We have the prediction for, I think he said it was another planet. I think it was Venus or Neptune or Uranus. He said there was an anomaly observed which allowed them to predict that there might be another planet that was causing this anomaly, and then they discovered Neptune. And I was like, oh right, so like that was a predictive model that allowed you to make the prediction that somewhere else was already there. Did it cause it, or was it just a predictive effect of it?
No. Stop. Not did it cause it. No. What is an independent variable? That would be, in this example, the cause of a phenomena. What have you got to have? What's the constituent parts of an independent variable to make it an independent variable?
Somebody to manipulate it, and
Okay,
it's got to be the presumed cause.
It's got to be the presumed cause. That's number one. You've got to be able to vary and manipulate it. What else?
It's got a presumed cause, and it must be capable of a manipulation by the experimenter.
Yeah, it's got to be real. Implied in those two things. But yeah, it's got to be real. So no varying and manipulating, bending conceptual mediums known as pseudo-Riemannian force space, otherwise known as space-time. Yeah, that being the description of the effect of gravity. There's no bending and manipulating concepts in pseudo-force space. So that can't be an independent variable. So when say, gravity's my independent... No, it isn't. Concepts can't be varied or manipulated. They're not real. So number one, it's got to be real. Number two, it must be capable of being physically varied and manipulated by you, the researcher. Why? Well, because we're dealing with physics. The physical cause of an effect. Not the hypothetical. We thought it could be, and then we spotted Venus. No, you've got to physically vary it to see if it causes the effect. Oh, we varied Venus. Was it Neptune?
It was Neptune, yeah.
My
But to be fair, I just want to point out that even though he was trying to apply science in the context of this, there is another counter argument that we could give against this, and it was that the Texas sharpshooter fallacy applies. Oh, look, there's a planet there that we can claim that we discovered it by saying that there was an anomaly in the maths, then giving us the explanation or the prediction that our model would predict that there was a Neptune there. And what do you know? There's Neptune, and it's an example of the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. You couldn't prove it either way, but that's the explanation that we would give for them to prove that it's not the Texas sharpshooter fallacy.
Also known as cherry picking.
Are they saying they discovered Neptune? When was this?
They're saying they discovered Neptune by observing the anomalies in the orbits, apparently.
Orbits is a begging the question. Orbits is a begging the question fallacy. Discovering a light in the sky is perfectly fine.
When was this?
Oh, I don't know. The discovery of Neptune, I don't know. Early 1920s, I guess. Let me look it up. Hang on.
Well, no, that's fine. That's fine. Because astrology have known about Neptune for God knows how long. You know what I mean? Someone's pulling someone's leg there because Neptune was known about in astrology. Neptune is known about from a long time back.
It says September the 23rd, 1846.
The Greek Roman god of the seas.
Neptune.
It says discovered on the 23rd of September 1846, now considered by most astronomers to be the outermost major planet in the solar system. It was discovered on this date using mathematics. Jonathan Gottfried and a few other names that I can't pronounce all worked independently to help discover this world in 1846. That's the claim. How could we prove that it's not the Texas sharpshooter fallacy in application here? And that's what they were doing. Oh, look, we were looking for something and then we found something, and then we can say we used maths to predict it was there.
Sure, they can make that assertion. Right, the point is that it's not an application of the scientific method, i.e. a hypothesis-based experiment where you observe a phenomena. They've got that much. Astrophysicists have got plenty of phenomena to study. Lights in the sky, yeah, no worries, that's a phenomena. Yeah. But varying and manipulating the cause of that effect in a controlled situation is never going to happen.
Just a quick update on that for Brian. It was actually Galileo, if you go back, is attributed to having observed it 28th of December 1612 and 28th of January 1613.
Whoa. Galileo observed what? Neptune?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Galileo?
Right. On Google, when I search it, it claims that 23rd of September, 1846.
Yeah. Neptune was supposedly discovered in 1846 by Johann Gottfried Galle using calculations by Urbain Le Verrier and John Crouch Adams, making it a joint British-French-German discovery. But these astronomers were not the first to observe Neptune. That honour goes to the famous Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei.
Pop goes your bottle.
Either way, the point is that they don't have any scientific validity. You can look at lights in the sky and give them names all day long. It doesn't mean that you've offered any scientific validity for your just so story. In this case, we've got orbital assumptions that are being made. Well, those orbital assumptions aren't proved by way of having a just so story.
Right, can I just...
Well,
we can
hang on,
stop. Wait a sec. We can further this argument now by saying that actually it was Galileo that discovered it in the 16th, 17th century, whatever it was. And this claim on Google now is evidence of the Texas sharpshooter fallacy because they are using mathematics retrospectively to claim the discovery when it wasn't. It was discovered by Galileo, apparently. Brilliant.
No, it goes back the number 12... in what's known as the major arcana in the tarot. The hanged man is the English terminology for it. That Neptune is connected to the hanged man. That's like each card each card has has a planet, or what they call a planet, connected to it, and Neptune is associated with the Hangman, and that the tarot is like, I think it's 2,000 years old, something like that. Started in Egypt. But
Where are you
by
gonna
the way,
get the prom?
Bev has something to share as well. Don't you, Bev? Just to let you know in case you didn't hear that at the start, Nathan.
Hey, John.
Hey, John. Congratulations.
Hey, thanks, guys. I was going to say, where are you going to get the primary source evidence on the hanged man, though? You know, like only got certain things to work
I
with.
almost did the same, John, and started asking about Galileo Galilei, but we won't get into that. Hey, QE, by the way.
Galileo Galilei was also an astrologer, so he would have known about it from astrology, which is older than his time.
You just looking for a citation prior to 1840s of it being observed, aren't you? It's
Are they only taking credit for the...
playing the Texas sharpshooter.
I just think the way it was written when I heard it read out, it just sounded like... Can you hear me? What's going on? I can hear babies crying. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just hear someone's baby as well.
Okay. Completely lost my train of thought. Never mind.
What I've been reading.
Go ahead, whoever that was.
What I've been. Sorry, just The Apprentice. What I've been reading lately, like the distance to the stars and all that, and how they measure it with the parallax and all that. But an analogy someone gives, like our closest stars, like whatever, like 100 light years away or something. But it's like two surveyors 16 inches apart trying to get a distance on something that's 20 miles away. So the triangle's too small, like the whole parallax thing. It's like the base of the triangle, it's too small, and just stupid when they try and tell us how distant stars are away and stuff.
That assumes that they are that far away, and Tycho Brahe said that was outrageous.
No, that's not what Tycho Brahe said, because he got that swindle. He's a bit like Newton in that regard. This brings a big smile to my face. I remember Jaron highlighting this. So Tycho Brahe actually said, well, they'd have to be absolutely enormous.
Well, they have to use triangles, so that means they're not using the curved surface. What they do is they use a triangle, which is all pre-assuming anyway. They don't know a distance. And then they just add in globe mathematics after that, which makes their angle to a star or whatever way more.
No, you'd also have to have the Earth orbiting the sun. So go to the big elephant in the room and then chop its head off.
Exactly.
Well, I already did that. I already done that several times, but not right now, because I was responding to what that lad said a minute ago when he brought
that's
into
parallax.
That
was stars. They use the Earth translating around the sun. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. The 90 something attribution of credit to these people seems more like the attribution of credit for the begging the question fallacy of the orbit by way of their maths,
or the Texas sharpshooter for using maths to make predictions.
But these aren't predictions, are they? It's like saying, well, at 11:59, I predict it's going to tick over to 12. That's not really a prediction now, is it?
Nope.
Well, no, because you know that it's already part of the frequency. You know that's what's going to happen next, right? But if you didn't know that, then it would be a prediction. But the issue is, did you know that it was going to do that in the first place, and have you therefore cheated? Which is
no, it wouldn't be a prediction. A hypothesis is a prediction. What's the hypothesis?
Precisely.
My point was that Galileo was spotted Neptune before the claim of mathematics was used to predict there might be another planet there to explain the anomaly in the maths.
Yeah, they already knew that.
Bullshit.
Yeah, what? They already knew it in 1600s.
Yeah, I know. Professor Dave was responding to Globebusters on a dedicated video where he said, astrology can be used to do science. This is how the discovery of Neptune was done, by applied mathematics. And I was like, oh, really?
Professor Dave, well, he's already toe tagged. He's a dumbass.
That sounds like a lot of hot garbage. What the hell? Morning, guys.
Morning, chocolate.
So as I say, just to round this out, the whole point of the date in the 1800s being ascribed to these individuals is so that you can weasel in a begging the question fallacy of an orbit and orbital mechanics in the maths, so they can ascribe that to them. So then you can argue about whether or not they or Galileo were the first originators of the observation. Who cares? As QE's pointed out, no, if you're going to have a prediction, that would be a hypothesis. If you're going to assert causal relationships, then you better have validated them by way of an experiment and varied and manipulated something that you assume caused it, as opposed to dig out the maths, ascribe it as a science, and say, look, they got it right, when they watch something happen again.
Alternatively, you can also use it as a Texas sharpshooter fallacy application to claim that mathematics can be used in science to make predictions for planetary observations, which is my point.
And you're right, whilst begging the question of an orbit in the first instance.
Yeah.
Click, click, click. I think we're done with housekeeping. I think we covered everything.
Bev, were you going to share something?
Yeah, I think Bev wanted to show something on LIGO.
Yeah, there's a picture I put in the chat.
No, can you pop it in something on Skype that I'm got access to?
It's on Master B, isn't it?
Oh, Master B, yeah, I've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put that up. Yeah, great. It's on screen.
What's up, Bev?
Have a look at that first. All right, chocolate.
Yeah, I've got it on screen for the audience, Bev.
Right, well, you can see that it's LIGO at Livingston, Louisiana. And I don't know whether you've ever noticed or anybody's ever pointed this out before, but see both of those arms in that picture? See what's next to both of them?
Arms? By that, you mean the road things?
Yeah, there's a canal next to it.
There's two canals. There's
oh, yeah,
one
so there is.
each.
Okay, yeah, I see the canals.
I reckon they're both linked.
Oh, yeah.
Now, as we know, the contention is that the water level has a relative drop to your position.
Sorry, that sounds nonsensical. Sorry, did you just say the water level has a drop? That makes no sense, Bev.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, we'll get there because on the model, the globe model dictates. Does that sound better? The globe model dictates that the water level drops relative to your position.
Ellie, where's that globe model at?
Hold on.
Always on the top of the ball.
Hold on. So if we are to have a forced reification fallacy of a model we've never seen, shout out to Quantum Eraser, then we would assume that level doesn't mean level anymore. It means water's dropping away from you. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, that's on the globe side, right? But having LIGO right next, well, because it claimed to be the straightest thing in the universe, LIGO with the laser that bounces, so that's definitely straight. Now, I would say horizontal, and the globers also say horizontal. It's a straight line. Well, they don't actually. They get completely screwed up. But with the canal being next to it or right at the side of it, you could say, or I would say, the canal water and LIGO both parallel. No difference between the two. In fact, the canal is probably put there to aid them in the construction of the laying out the monuments and for the surveying of the initial concrete work.
Can you mute Anthony? Anthony, can you mute? I can just hear you constantly clicking.
Right. Well, we've been working on the water level and how to produce a straight line, and we've got a straight line test. Well, this is sort of like the build up to it. I mean, I don't know if anybody else had ever known this before, but the LIGO having the canal at the side of it. So I've drawn up a few things on my thing. Can I put my camera on? Is that my camera on there now?
Probably, but I've got my Skype screen covering you, so tell me when you're ready and I'll put you on.
Yeah, that's on my camera. So I've got LIGO in the black, the concrete and in the grey, and then the water. Have you got that on the screen?
I have indeed.
Right. Well, as you see, this top picture, the one I've labelled A, LIGO, the concrete, and the water all parallel. No difference at all. Well, the next one, B, there, as you can see, there is a drop from the right-hand side. So if you're at the right-hand side, if that's how they claim they've started with LIGO, there is a drop towards the end of the arm of the water of the canal that's right next to the side of it. It's got to be. There must be. There's the only way. And then C is if they've done it the other way round, depending on where you stood, obviously, the water drops to the other end. And then I've put D here where it's in the middle. And it drops both sides to the middle relative to, because it's a relative drop on their model.
Hold on. There's one missing. I'm sorry to do this to you, Bev. You're going to have to add an E. So E is where there's two surveyors at the same time, one on either side, and they're measuring a pit.
Well, yeah, that's where we go to now. There's the double drop makes the hump. See, it only works with one person. But the problem that they've got with LIGO is that LIGO is already situated there. It's not moving. That's the straight line, right? That's the they're stuck to that because LIGO's there. You don't need anybody at either side looking because LIGO becomes the unit. So all we need the ballers to do now is to tell us whereabouts the water drops in relation to LIGO.
I know that's although I know I appreciate that's rhetorical. You're throwing it out there. You already gave the answer. It doesn't. That's visually bloody obvious.
It's A. But A is the one where water level is horizontal, and I've spent 2 years with them telling me I'm a flat earther for saying that level is horizontal. Well, I've been saying
by definition, level is horizontal. Yes, we know that by definition. And
that's just semantics.
Yeah.
Semantics. Yeah, it is. You're right. What's your point?
It's geometric.
I'll try again.
Level being horizontal.
I'll try again.
I got a question for you, Bev.
Hold on, that was hand waved.
Hold on a second, Nathan. Hold on. I understand level and horizontal. I got all that. I heard you the other day on a show say the Black Swan argument was bullshit.
Oh, come on.
Right,
shout out to Retro Bill, who says Anthony's answer to the distance to the sun question was a thing of beauty. I totally agree. It's really nice to have him here to talk about Christian Huygens in the concise way he does. Thank you so much for pointing that out, Retro Bill, and thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, now
Can they get that settled?
Let's get back to the point. I heard you say it.
But what did I say?
You said the argument was bullshit.
I didn't say that. I definitely didn't say that. Unless
I heard you say it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess it's not bullshit then, right?
Well, what is the initial statement that the Black Swan argument is built on?
What is the initial statement?
Yeah.
If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, Bev.
So the Earth's a ball.
No.
In this argument, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, it seems to me like you've gone to a we see too far argument.
No, I didn't. See, you did say bullshit too, you fucking clown. It's
no need. Please keep it civil. Let's just do this.
Brought a picture into an argument.
Yeah, well, first he said he didn't say it was bullshit, Nathan, and then he said, "Oh yeah, well, there's a problem with the initial statement." Do you even know what logic is, Bev?
Before we get there, right? So far, what I've heard is Bev is saying he sees the Black Swan argument as a we see too far, which in a way it's assuming the ball in the first instance. That's his position. I'm just fighting his corner for him. Don't jump down my neck. Go ahead, QE.
So how is it bullshit? I'm trying to figure out where the bullshit is.
I don't use bullshit. I've never said that, QE. I don't use that term.
Okay, I'll try once more, Bev. I'll go to you this time. is your position, am I correct to assert that it's just a we see too far argument because it has the assertion Earth, a sphere, radius 3959 in the first part of the modus tollens? Is that correct?
No, the problem I have with the Black Swan is that it's now a picture. People only want to debate the picture when the actual Black Swan is a logical argument built upon falsification.
The argument is based in logic. The evidence is the photo. You see how that works?
I don't want to attack you or logic. I think logic's the best way to do this, and that's where the proofs lie.
Yeah, but it's a measurement, Bev. See, this one is actually a measurement, not just a photo, Bev.
John, you're doing that thing where you say his name in a derogatory. Can we be a little bit more impersonal?
Don't worry about the way I say his name.
Okay. Only because we're live, you can lay into him afterwards. Please, let's just keep it civil.
So I've heard Bev too talk about like horizontal is parallel and line is horizontal. Just I don't know, just like I get it, but I don't get it. It makes no sense. It just confuses me.
How is that confusing? You having me on? How are we throwing this curveball in? How is that confusing?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's the basis of surveying. That's
we're
the
not
way
going
surveying
back
works.
to level and horizontal, for goodness sakes.
Pardon?
What's the problem with the argument, Bev?
What
I was
argument?
going to say that gently as well.
Oh my God!
I was trying to ask the same question just a little bit more gently. So, if it's an argument you'd prefer not to have, Bev, would there be a reason why you'd prefer not to take that stance?
Well, I don't know what is the argument. What are you doing, right? Because to my understanding, logic should be simplified to its base form. First principles. You go down and make it as simple as possible to people.
Okay. Well, that's okay. We just tried an attempt to explain to Bev why the modus tollens has come about. It's going to take a little while. Please bear with me. Initially, we pointed out that they are using a logical fallacy of begging the question. They assume the R value in the first instance. And it wasn't enough to point out to them that they assume R in the first instance. You know, Mick West is just like, yeah, we know it's a sphere. We're allowed to beg the question. That's our justification we already know. So we've been told we must start from a standpoint where we assume the Earth's a sphere. That's their standpoint. So what Quantum Eraser has done is he's taken that demanded standpoint that apparently we must take because they already know and debunk it. So you have to start with that position. If the Earth was a sphere, as they are asserting, just because we don't say that, doesn't mean it's not the implication, because you're going to debunk it in the closing statement of the modus tollens logical consistency, which is to say, if the Earth is a sphere as asserted at radius 3959 by fundamentalist globe-believing fundies that don't realise that begging the question's not an acceptable argument, it's a fallacy, then the distance to the horizon couldn't be any more than the geometric limitations of a sphere radius 3959, and that would be 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, a la their geometry. If the horizon's beyond those geometric limitations, then the Earth's not a sphere.
You want me to have a go? Because, like I say, to base it down to its most simplest form, it should be, well, I would say, if the Earth is a spherical object, P, then the surface of liquid water must curve, Q. A water level is the tool for establishing a horizontal plane of reference, therefore, not Q. Therefore, not P.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
That's perfect.
Well,
that's perfect logic.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with your modus tollens either.
Yeah. I'm saying, like, the Black Swan has been taken now, because, I mean, I have to deal with people as well and talk to them. And whenever you talk to them, when they want to talk about the Black Swan, to me, it's a logical argument, right? So you want to work through the argument, but they just want to look at the picture and go, look at this, he's got a bent arm on this bit. If it's a picture.
Who cares what they do?
Well, that's what I mean. So my one takes that picture out of the argument altogether.
Why would you take an observation? You're still going to have to make the measurement for those. Now, philosophically, yeah, water's level. We all know that. That argument's still good. But that doesn't make the Black Swan argument bullshit because it's got a photo.
didn't say it was
Because it's a non
bullshit.
sequitur.
Hold on.
I
hold
never
on,
said
hold on,
that,
hold on,
Kimmy.
hold on. I think I've identified the problem, Bev. And this was discussed in the pre-show before you were here. So if I'm saying things that you haven't been privy to, don't worry. In terms of knowing when you've won, so you're saying the response you're getting from ballers is, look how bent the cranes are?
No,
That
I
is
mean,
your-
we don't talk about it anymore now because the ballers, they know they're beat with the argument, right? They know that argument, the Black Swan, the initial one, the logical argument, it's sound. They've got no basis on it. So what they do is they then pretend it's about the picture, right? So anybody else wanting to get into the argument has to go around the full workings, and you have to go through the geometric model of the numbers of their model for them. Well,
yeah, and
the simplification is to just say that water doesn't bend. There's no curvature to
It's a
it.
different
it's just
argument.
another argument, Bev.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
different argument, though. There's nothing wrong with the other argument either, and we're not saying that you should substitute one for the other. If you're saying,
I've
well,
not said it's bullshit.
okay, fine, you've said that several times. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in terms of the consistency of modus tollens, it isn't simple. Yeah, you've got to assert their geometric limitations because they assert them to us. Now, if that's too complex, and you're saying, well, a simpler modus tollens would be to assert that if Earth's a sphere, water would have to bend around it. Water's flat, therefore Earth's not a sphere. That's a perfectly logical, consistent argument also. But it's neither a replacement or a substitute for the Black Swan argument. It just isn't. It's just another equally good argument. If you want to punt it that way, that's fine also.
Fine. But I mean, I've never said that water's flat. What I say is a water level is a tool for establishing a horizontal, right? It's not flat. And you should never go to water to prove it's flat because obviously seas have tides.
Define flat.
I was going to say flat is level.
Flat's 2D. It's a two-dimensional surface, a plane.
Dude, nothing's two-dimensional in reality. As soon as you invoke one of the dimensions, the other two follow. So where do you get this two-dimensional shit?
From mathematics.
We're not. Oh my god. Okay, start over. We're dealing with reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So water, right? That's not mathematics. Water's level. Level's flat. What's define level?
Pardon?
Define level.
Equal. Balance.
No
Equilibrium.
part higher than the other, correct? That's flat.
Yeah, two-dimensional. 2D.
Oh, God.
Length times breadth.
Do we live in two dimensions, Bev?
Plane. No, we don't. We live in three
Then don't
dimensions.
invoke it.
A horizontal plane is two-dimensional, though, right?
Oh my god.
Yes, it is in maths.
It's
No, it
not-
isn't in
it's just
physics.
geometry.
They're both absolutely killer arguments. The Black
agree.
Swan is an attack on their model. It debunks their model. But what Bev is doing is he is very, 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 very patiently using surveying to show how they have zero measurements for this thing that they're still asserting, while they hand wave away and ignore the Black Swan by saying refraction. When they say refraction and trying to ignore the Black Swan, they end up dealing with surveying, the very thing they have that has no measurements for this curve. So
Well, that's what I wanted to get to, Brian. So that's where Bev jumped in, but I want to still make that point. So when they say they make it about the picture, as you phrase it, and say, oh, they're bending the cranes, or look at this picture because of the bendy cranes, then they've lost. At that moment, they have utilised an argument of refraction where the modus tollens is attacking the geometry. So once they say refraction, it's bent. Oh, right, so we're dealing with refraction then. So not geometric as asserted in your first instance fundamentalist globe belief. You've won at that point. It's just down to you to point out you've won to somebody that thinks they're winning by telling you, not tangent-based geometry, bendy optical-based non-geometry, non-maths for my globe. That's you winning. So going, oh, well, that's annoying. I've won the argument. No, recognise that you've won when they say refraction.
Well, this very thing happened recently when we were shown a photograph from Blackpool, and people were asserting all kinds of stuff about it without ever identifying a geometric horizon. So they walked straight past the Black Swan argument and walked straight into a surveying argument. Because even QQE said, show us the angles measured with a sextant or a theodolite.
Yeah, but to be fair, Whitsitt did try and address the geometric horizon point, and the opponent said, "No, look over here. I want to talk about this."
Whitsitt didn't do his homework. He didn't have a presentation together. His argument was great, but it was
no, that's not right.
Can I address the geometric?
Sorry, no, that's a.
He did try and make it out of
hold
the
on.
geometric
Sleeping
horizon.
Warrior and Brian. Just Brian, then Sleeping Warrior, then Bev wants to address both of you. Just Brian first. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. No, not that there was anything wrong with what Whitsitt was saying. It's just he didn't do his homework before the debate. He didn't have a presentation together. He didn't have things to present in defence of what they were trying to do. So that's where he got let down there.
That's not a true reflection of what Whitsitt did. What Whitsitt did was try to assert where the geometric horizon was, and the opponent would not allow it, and Whitsitt refused. He failed to assert his position, and the point got dropped. That's what happened.
I have a different view on it.
Fine, but you've expressed it. Bev, go ahead.
Well, the geometric, to me, is a study of line, shape, form, and the geometric horizon in that picture would be the mountains. It's a topographic horizon where the mountains and the sky meet, right? But that's not apparent because we know where the mountains are, and the mountains have been measured so that they're geometrically positioned already. So that would be the geometric horizon.
Correct.
Of the mountains. Now, if you're looking out over the water, that is an apparent position, but it's still geometric because horizontals are defined as being parallel to the plane of the horizon. Now, that's also geometric. That's a geometric term.
Oh, you're pulling something out that I'm keeping in my bag at the moment. Okay, so I'll ask it as a question rather than just throwing out what I'm keeping tucked up till the appropriate moment. So, for example, Bev, if you were to look at a picture of the Isle of Man, where would the horizon be? You say it'd be at the top of the mountains, where the sky meets the land, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that is a topographic horizon. That's where it is, isn't it? That's what the horizon's being defined as.
What, where the land or sea meets the sky, as opposed to where the sea meets the beach of the Isle of Man.
I wouldn't put that as the horizon down on the
you
floor
wouldn't
at sea level. No,
neither would I. It's very interesting how it was asserted to be the Earth curve edge horizon blocking the bottom of the Isle of Man, though, eh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's another thing as well, right? There's there's three different forms of geometry. There's Euclidean, three space that we all live in. There's spherical geometry, which is a bit of a joke. And then there's hyperbolic geometry, which is where you get your straight line orbits from. The two other ones that are non-Euclidean, they're complete fantasy. Imaginometry, I call them. But tangents and chords only exist in Euclidean geometry. So the very moment you apply or you say tangent or chord, then you're applying Euclidean geometry. You're putting the sphere that you're talking about as a three-dimensional object, not two-dimensional.
The essence of the Black Swan, Bev.
So are you then saying that when they say tangents, they must be applying a straight line and cannot be applying a bendy curve?
We haven't got time.
It's
Yes, Sleeping Warrior. What Bev's just beautifully done at the end of this little discourse about him maybe not liking the Black Swan is he's detailed the essence of it in this point. Yes, Sleeping Warrior, he has.
So in other words, 7/6R cannot apply the minute they use the word tangents because 7/6R is a curve and they need straight lines if they're using tangents to the horizon, correct?
Correct. With that, though, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
That was one of the best endings to a live show ever.
Call it a tangent line.
Exactly, Sleeping Warrior. Epic ending for you to have said that, Bev.
I don't think Bev's got it. I think he missed the point I made.
It doesn't
No,
matter.
straight lines are straight. There's no curvature to it.
Right,
I know.
so
No
tangent.
706 are then.
Right, so
There's
when
no
they say
sphere.
so-
There's no ball.
Bev. So when they say it's all refracted, right, that would imply that the line to the horizon is refracted. That's their argument in rebuttal.
Yeah.
It's refracted.
Yeah.
So therefore, not a tangent as required, Bev?
Well, required for what? Like the point. That's the whole point I'm saying is it's not a
Bev,
tangent.
Bev, don't just throw it out there and then start waffling. Required for what? The geometry of Earth, the sphere radius 3959, Bev.
Well, that would be spherical geometry, not
Yeah.
Euclidean geometry. That's the problem.
Stop. Yes. So if the Earth was a sphere with spherical geometry radius 3959, you're going to require a tangent, not refracted.
It can't have a tangent with that
Right.
geometry. That's the point.
Right, proven
That's
by the
what they're
Black
telling
Swan,
us
Bev.
now.
Bev, proven by the Black Swan. Demonstratable with logic. Inviolable logic that they can't get around.
I think what Bev is saying, you can't have a tangent to a sphere, a tangent to a circle, not to a sphere. Is that right, Bev?
No. Spherical geometry is the geometry of the two-dimensional surface of the sphere. There is zero vertical component to spherical geometry.
Yes, that's
They
correct. also.
imagine a two-dimensional plane.
Yes, that's correct. In terms of what Bev's describing here, when you look at Muppet Vision, you're not looking at a 3D rendering of a sphere, you're looking at a 2D depiction of Muppet Vision. That's correct, Bev.
No, this isn't what you look at. This is just purely their geometry, not what we see. We live in three-dimensional Euclidean space, right? Everything that we measure and we see is all three-dimensional Euclidean. Now, the geometry, spherical geometry, is the geometry of the two-dimensional surface of a sphere, right? So that gives them a problem straight away, because if the sphere is Euclidean, then it's a three-dimensional shape, not two.
Yeah, furthermore, you don't see the side of your own head. So we call it Muppet Vision because what the 2D representation inside view gives you is you on the side of the left-hand part of the image and your target on the right with a two-dimensional circle beneath the two and a chord drawn between the 2 points and a tangent line to the horizon that's blocking your view of the hidden value they claim is on the other side of that 2D sphere, which isn't a sphere, it's a circle. But you don't see the side of your own head. When do you ever get to see a representation when you take a photograph that then translates into their Muppet Vision mathematics where they'll show you literally the side of your own head in the frame? That never happens. They only do it to remove perspective and put it into this 2D geometry that doesn't exist in reality.
Yeah, the point that I want to make is that 2D is a flat, plane surface, right? Now, so in reality, when you get down to talking to these people about the geometry that they use, they are the flat earthers. They think they live on a two-dimensional surface. We don't. I know that I can measure elevation, right? That doesn't exist in spherical geometry. It's just not there. They only have a two-dimensional surface that they can imagine curves around the surface of a sphere.
The latitude and longitude grid, you're kind of aiming at that as well, aren't you?
Well, that's 2-dimensional as well. Longitude, latitude. There's only 2-dimensional coordinate system. So the curve that they imagine, that they obviously can't measure because it's not there. Even the curve of their spherical geometry, it's not there. They just imagine it. It's all imagined. And the only way you can prove anything in reality is to use geometry. That's where your proofs come from. Mathematical proofs are within geometry. It's a logical based system.
And when they do, in their geometry, to make the assertions which they used to make until the Black Swan, they required a straight line tangent to the Earth curve bulge at radius 3959. So when you say, well, they've got to make this assertion that essentially is a flat Earth claim, they're using 2D geometry. Yeah, but when they do make that claim, they also cannot make it at all because they haven't got a straight line for the geometry. So to even make the first step and do the maths, for us to then be told we must reify that into our world, the maths falls at the first hurdle. They can't even do the maths. They haven't got a tangent to do it with in their geometry, which you're saying is 2D flat Earth geometry to begin with. And we're all right. No one's disagreeing with each other, Bev, at this stage.
No, it's not 2D flat Earth model. It's spherical geometry. It's a fiction. The problem, what I was trying to get at is, if you've got a 2-dimensional surface, as in spherical geometry, then where do you place your tangent? Because a tangent's a straight line. And as we know in geometry, a straight line cannot lie within a plane and without it. It's impossible. So where would you put the tangent to a 2-dimensional surface? How would you do that? It's not possible. You can't even have a chord. It's an impossibility of them having tangents and chords in spherical geometry.
Correct.
They just don't exist.
Correct. No straight lines.
Yeah, no straight lines. There's no parallel lines. They can't even have a definition of a square because a square has opposite parallel sides. I mean, they're done, really, geometrically. Not just the Black Swan, but the actual geometry that they propose to use isn't there. It's nonsensical. It's obviously a fiction to support a non-real model. And we're going to use water levels and Euclidean geometry, right line geometry as we call it, to prove a straight line with a water level.
Right. I mean, you're getting into the brass tacks of the physicality, which I love. But when you break it down, it seems so ludicrous that you should have to do this. Because we covered this right at the start, right? I laugh and say it's semantics. What words and their meanings? Yeah, well, flat and level. It's flat, it's level, it's not curved. That's definitely the antithesis of the definition in the first place. But yet you've got to go out there and prove it. I mean, that is the world we live in. It's bonkers.
Yeah, the Euclidean geometry is the foundations of mathematics. That's where they get all of their proofs from. It had to be built upon a foundation of solid logical foundations. Obviously, it's mathematics. Now, where they've took it from that original foundation is off into, well, space, haven't they? They've imagined straight lines returning to themselves, i.e. orbits, and then that can put you in a place where you imagine beyond. Well, it's just not there. It's a fiction.
Indeed.
I think that the killer argument, I think that Bev can correct me now if I'm wrong, but the killer argument from Bev is that surveying only use horizontals and verticals. They don't use, that's how they do everything. It's horizontals and verticals. There's no curves.
Within Euclidean geometry, it's a book of proofs, and there's a proof that states straight lines which are parallel to the same straight line are parallel to each other. I mean, logically sound, makes sense. Well, you can use the mathematical description of a horizontal that says horizontal is parallel to the plane of the horizon. Well, if horizontals, you could use the Euclidean geometry and say that by that, logically, all horizontals are parallel to each other. And if all horizontals are parallel to each other, then they can't intersect. Therefore, you can't make it wrap around a ball. So if you make the water level and prove that the water level is a straight line, therefore being horizontal with neither high end being higher nor lower than the other, then there's no physical way that it could wrap around a ball. It's just not possible.
So but what are you saying? Like, how are you going to prove that? Are you going to get like a 5 mile long level and prove this? Like, I don't get it.
I use Euclidean geometry in the principles of a shared straight line segment.
But then
no
how
two
are
straight
you
lines
looking
can
for a
share a
telescope
common
to
segment.
take these measurements?
Say again.
Are you going to use like a telescope to take these measurements? Like,
to water
it
level.
sounds all good in theory or whatever, but
have you seen the test
yeah.
yet? The shared straight line segment.
But that's it, like, because I heard you say all this on the debate show, and everyone on the debate show was just confused. And
which debate
like,
show?
I think like it's good what you're saying, but I think you just need to
where did
steer
you hear
away
me say
from
this?
Hold on, Bev, just hear him out because he's got a criticism. Just take it as constructive before.
I was just on a debate show. I heard him, and he brought all this up, and everyone's just a little bit confused on how to take all the level and stuff, and that's because the whole level thing, like what kind of level, like a builder's level, because theoretically it would work if you had a level a meter long, like it's going to show the same result whether you're on a 25,000 circumference sphere or a flat plane. Like it would give you the same result.
What types of level are there?
A meter.
What?
How many different types of level are there? He said at what type of level?
He's probably he's confused.
I did say that.
Maybe.
But that's the thing, like
I asked you before.
Like, how are you getting? Sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to establish which bits are confusing. You're just sort of throwing it out that everyone's confused by it, but you've got to get specific.
I think that's what I wanted to ask him where it was, because there's every chance that he's heard me over at somewhere like Gem Pandas or, McToons or somebody like that, which they obviously can't understand this because they think level is a circle.
Exactly.
Because they can't have level being horizontal. So what is it that you don't understand about level being to establish horizontal?
That's what I'd like to know, because
we'll let him
it
answer.
seems very easy to me.
Let him answer then.
Like I guess you guys are probably smarter than me and all this, but just like, how big's your level? Pretty much, like, how are you determining this level stuff? Because theoretically,
he's talking over a
it can-
distance, I think.
Okay.
Pardon?
Don't
Yeah,
interrupt them.
just-
Let
you
them
saying like
talk.
Yeah, he's talking about how you establish the level over a long distance. That's what he's talking about. I think you guys are.
Yes, we
like-
know that.
Yeah. Say my water level I've got is 400 meters. So is that okay? See, this is why I think
Hold on.
you didn't really understand
Hold on,
the
Bev, you've got to
debate
let him
that you may have
answer.
heard.
Bev, sometimes the short pause isn't enough. I'm really sorry to interrupt.
But that's the thing, theoretically, 400 meters. You don't really have a 400 meter long.
Yes, I do. It's here right in front of me now. Do you want a picture of it?
Yes, please. Can you pop your screen up, please?
A 400 meter
Oh, no,
long
I
level.
can't get my camera on
Hey.
here. I'll find you one for Master B.
Thank you very much.
A water level can be any distance. There's no limit to it.
Were you here for the example earlier, The Apprentice, when what was it, CERN? It wasn't CERN, it was LIGO, sorry.
LIGO.
Did you see the LIGO example earlier?
No, I heard the conversation. I didn't see any.
That's 4-kilometer
any
canal
pictures or
at the side.
But the example in terms of the LIGO, not CERN, is a canal next to it. There you go.
All right. I'm looking at main chat.
Anthony, can you mute, please?
Are you posting it in the main chat or?
Okay, so what we've got a picture of now is a 400 meter and 100 meter reel with hose pipe.
Well, pipe. Tube. Yeah, one of them's 8mm ID, 10mm OD. That's the 100-meter one. The 400-meter one is 3mm ID, 5mm OD.
What the hell does that mean?
Internal diameter, outside diameter.
Thank you. Is that relevant?
I don't know. It depends. I like to give everybody the.
Is this on?
I mean, the water level isn't.
It's on YouTube or
doesn't matter
Just a
about
picture of
amount.
I'll have to explain it verbally because you obviously haven't got this picture in front of you, but the audience has. It's a picture of two reels with piping on them. One has got a 400 meter capacity reel. The other's got a 100 meter capacity reel. That's it. That's all they are. Reels with water. You lie them out, and if the water dribbles to one end, it ain't level. It's really that simple.
Yeah, the water evens out to find an equal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what the water in the tube does.
I'm going to have to say it, although it seems like I'm stating the obvious. Water finds and maintains level. That's what it does.
I think that the criticism that was thrown, I think was valid until you've got the LIGO. The ballers previously could say that no, it's curved, and it's hard to actually demonstrate that with physicality, not geometry, not the logic of the geometry that we know in our own heads makes it true, but actually that physical demonstration, that real ruler. And that's been my criticism of using water as a definitive thing. But if the LIGO thing is there, then that's them saying this is a straight line and the water matches it. So you've then got, for me, the thing that backs this statement up in physicality, so you can go and use a reel of hose to define a level now. And I think that LIGO picture, Bev, is the clincher, I think, with the canals. Because it demonstrates it in physicality for the first time. You've got a big bloody ruler, it's called a LIGO meter, running with that water.
But there's still a logical problem, right? Into where does the water drop, right? They're going to say it drops, and they will state tangent many times. You will hear it. That's why I make the point of tangents, to let you know, so you can tell them, because they will have a positional problem for the tangent, for the straight line, that they will then want to refer to the water with.
That Ace, twice in one show then, Bev. Hold on. So twice in one show, Bev. So you just recognise when you've won. So you're like, well, then they've got a logical problem because they've got to assert a tangent. So from a single position, the water's dropping away from you and they can assert a tangent from their position locally, right? No, they can't. You know, you're saying, well, they're going to start asserting this logically. On screen, for the audience, it's described as being perfectly straight, level, flat. As perfect as can be, right?
Yeah.
So no. It is definitely not dropping away at 8 inches per mile squared. That's what we're told are the specific parameters of this structure. That's what you tell us. It's your proof, see, for gravity, right?
Yeah, it's straight. So because of the defined geometry, you've got 4 kilometers there. Now the thing cannot match the water on a ball because it's straight, so it must not match the water. If it does match the water, it either means the tube's bent in their world, or so that's the reality. You go from one end to the other, and there must be that differential. It has to have played out so that the water level is higher or lower at one end in terms of the mounting of the straight line. So it does them all ends up that. Well, I said previously, I've never seen a big ruler, but a 4 kilometer ruler is fantastic.
Yeah, the logical problem, like we've been saying for ages, that they're going to be falling into quite often is that if it drops relative to your position, it can't both drop from each end of that 4 kilometer line. That canal can't drop both ways.
Right. They can't apply their geometry along any part of this 4 kilometer straight line. It's impossible, because from any vantage point, they'd have to have it dropping away, and it clearly is not. And either they violate the very claim of what LIGO is, in defiance of a non-demonstratable curve, and claim that it's only relative to your position in LIGO. Well, if you stand in the middle of LIGO, it's bending at each end 8 inches per mile squared from your position. You're at the top of a hump. No, it's claimed to be straight. Yeah, but it's only locally. It's Arwin's quantum curvature. LIGO will bend relative to where you stand on it.
Yeah, water can't drop or hump if it stays neither end. So it's been a problem for them, the water level, the tool, for quite a while, because when you have an auto level or a spirit level, you have a bubble in the center and you look to either end. Well, you can imagine that as a tangent if you want to. But
yes.
The moment you have a water level that doesn't have that midpoint, it just has both ends. Then it becomes a physical straight line between 2 points, as defined in Euclidean geometry. That defines your straight line. It's a horizontal plane defined by the water level.
Right. It violates the law of non-contradiction to assert that this structure could in any way comport with globe Earth geometry. It can't.
Well, Nathan, since you brought up quantum curvature, but if you don't look at the material, at the realm, at what you're standing on, or like anything beyond your sight, well, if that could fall outside of normal 3D space, then maybe in the quantum flux state, which could be considered other dimensionally, just like pseudo-Riemannian force space, it might literally be spherical and curved beyond where you could see.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. But it still violates the law of non-contradiction in the physical realm we actually experience, Arwin. It can't be non-straight and straight at the same time.
No, but it isn't. That's the point.
It can't be.
It's straight in the 3D realm, but outside of the 3D realm, which lies outside of the perception, it may actually be non-straight.
Well, that flies in the face of a globe Earth claim that we have 8 inches per mile squared drop from every vantage point because we're on a sphere. So regardless of your quantum explanation for a non-experienceable curvature in 4D bending space-time, it doesn't change that there is a physical assertion of a geometry that's sphere-shaped beneath our feet and experienceable everywhere. This contradicts that without any get-out. Without if I stand here, well, no, it's still a straight line that they've built. That's what they're saying it is.
Yeah, they do have a problem, but that's because they had to explain it from a more primitive viewpoint, because the general people wouldn't understand. So they would have to say, yeah, the boat goes over the curve because it appears that way, even though technically it's not, because you're looking at it, it's actually moving over a flat surface. But beyond sight, it would move over that curve.
I see, kind of locally flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the claim is we have 8 inches per mile squared drop from every vantage point because we're standing on a spherical surface with spherical geometry we've debunked with the Black Swan.
If LIGO is straight, as they claim it is, then there has to be a 4-foot differential in terms of the water height across there. at some point. How it plays out is impossible, but there would have to be a 4-foot differential between the straight tube that they claim it is for their LIGO and the water height. It's not. It runs
It's
parallel.
1.25 meters claim.
LIGO is a detector, right? It's like
It's just a laser.
Right. So laser falls under light. So one could say that if you reach around with any kind of sensory, that would break the quantum spherical effect and turn it into the locally flat effect, right? So any device that's going to reach out and detect things instead of calculating it using geometry is going to result into whatever is being observed to be flat because of the quantum breaking effect.
So what you're saying, Alwyn, let me get it straight. Let me get Alwyn's statement straight. You're saying what we observe and experience and measure in reality is flat. However, you can, if you like, decide to maths it all spherically.
Yes.
You can't.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to let us know that, Arwin. Also,
You're
the
welcome.
entire Western world's religion. But thanks, anyway.
I would just like to point something out. Now, I don't agree with everything the man says, but he has done some interesting things. Jay Tolan went to the California aqueduct, and he found out that they dropped it by, or they added some curve to it by a couple of inches per mile. It wasn't 8 inches, but it was a couple of inches. I think it was 3, he said, or something like that. But they had to keep on putting in these gates because the water, they didn't put in the gates, the water would overflow. So that is definitely in support of water levels. Because why is the water overflowing? Because it's not conforming to what the aqueduct has been built to partly conform to. That's why.
It's transferring water. That's what an aqueduct does. It's a good job it drops. Otherwise, the water wouldn't. It'd be a canal.
Yeah, I know it moves the water and that, but they try and state it. What he was saying is that it was stated that they dropped it for the reason of it was stated that it was connected to the supposed curve of the earth, as opposed to the actual real world reason. But he was showing that they have gates and they have to have them, otherwise the water will overflow the aqueduct.
Yeah. Perception collapses the light curve function.
Yeah, I don't understand Brian's point because he's saying that that's what a baller would say. But what I would reply, if that's what a baller said to me, is that what you're arguing for is that the water finds, seeks, and maintains its level.
No, what Jay Tolan, I put a bit more detail to it. Jay Tolan was saying that the claim it was that the California aqueduct dropped by 3 inches per mile because it was trying to conform to its curvature. Now, even though 3 inches per mile is not the calculation for the curvature.
Who said that?
Jay Tolan.
Did he not just say that it was to make the water move? Because it's an aqueduct. I mean, the aqueduct should drop, otherwise the water won't move.
Yeah. Watch his video on. Yeah, because I'm only going by what I can remember. I do remember him saying that about the 3 inches thing, that they built it that way. And it was kind of supposed to be following the curve of the earth. Or this is something he heard or something like that. But as he showed that they need gates because the water will overflow if they don't have gates to stop it. So when they built the aqueduct with a 3 inches per mile drop, what happened was they needed gates to stop the water from overflowing. So that destroys the baller argument completely that the water is bending at 8 inches per mile square. Because even a 3-inch drop and the water will overflow straight away. They have to put in gates.
Yeah, water's finding and maintaining its level. That's why they'd have to do it if that's what they're asserting. Still makes no sense. If it's supposed to be flowing, why would you want to stop it?
Because it overflows at the sides of the aqueduct. It's not that they stop it. They put in a gate so it hits off the gate and it flows underneath the gate. That's the type of gates they use.
Oh, a slipway.
I've seen these
before.
It's
called a slipway.
Yeah, Well, I see. I don't know what the name of it are, but I've seen them before. I've seen them before where they have a gate where the water is basically the water is hitting off the gate and it's flowing underneath it. So it's kind of slowing down the surface water. Because what would happen is eventually it would just overflow. The water would just flow out over the sides of the aqueduct.
Sure.
That's what would happen. So they have to put in the gates. So because they built it with a drop, they have to put in the gates. And it's only a 3 inches per mile drop. So if they didn't put in the gates, the water would just overflow the aqueduct. Do you understand
So,
what I
like
mean?
Yeah, we understand. We follow. Everyone's just digesting it. Nobody disagrees. Just nobody jumped to say, yes, excellent. Yes, excellent, Brian.
I just wasn't sure, that's all.
No, definitely. Go ahead, The Apprentice. Go ahead.
Just so like I'm understanding. So in the LIGO thing, there's water inside the tube.
No. There's water next to it in the canal.
No.
So
all right.
so thinking about what he's saying with this 3-inch drop, 3-inch whatever, right? At the end of this drop, right? So at the end of this drop, wouldn't it be that if you were there, the Earth would be dropping in the opposite direction?
That's not the biggest problem. He's saying it's 3 inches per mile drop, correct, Brian? That's not 8 inches per mile squared drop. That's just 3 inches per mile.
Only in one direction too.
Yeah,
the way
right.
that the water's flowing.
So it's sloped in one direction at a very, very gradual rate. Not a squared function, 8 inches per mile. No, just 3 inches per mile, not squared.
Okay.
On a grade.
On a grade.
Rise over run.
It's relief at 3 inches per mile. That's all it is.
Wow, so it's actually slanted and not
It's just a
curved
slant.
anyway.
Yes, Arwin, that's right.
No, not a slant. It's just accommodating the flow.
No,
by way
optical
of slant.
slant.
Yeah.
Flow. No, because if you have water flowing, then you could imagine if you had it level, that flow would get bigger and bigger and bigger over time, wouldn't it? Because the flow, the level becomes like an uphill because the flow's pushing against it. So I can imagine that you'd have to put it on a slight pitch to account for the flow that you're dealing with.
It's the difference between a river and a canal or a lake. Yeah. Like a lake, once it overflows, it will then flow away to find its level. Like it will reach its maximum level. If it was leveled off and there was no slope to it, then that's what would have to occur. But they put a grade in it so the water does flow.
But the best part is the fact that they have to use these gates, because even at just at 3 inches per mile and not squared, as Nathan said, it's not 8 inches per mile squared, it's just 3-inch grade per mile. They still have to use gates because the water will, and even though the aqueduct is above the water level, the water will overflow the aqueduct. They have to put in the gates.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming Streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, or joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.